Vietnam has been fighting a rebound led by Omicron, but authorities say in recent days their daily tally has been retreating. For more, I have Michael Tatarsky live on the line. Michael, it's good to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with a bit on the Omicron situation there in Vietnam, Michael. Does the daily caseload appear to be on a tangible decline?
At the moment, yes. Yesterday was around 160,000 cases, which is much lower than some of the days in the last week, which have been over 200,000 or 300,000. Although tracking it day by day is a little bit tricky. We don't really know how much testing is going on a daily basis. But at the moment, cases do appear to be going down from a very high number, but we'll still have to see how that goes in the coming days.
Right. Michael, on the vaccination front then, Vietnam appears to have an aggressive campaign in place with further plans in the works to inoculate children as young as 3 years old. Do tell us a bit more.
Yeah, so after a slow start last year, Vietnam really didn't get going on vaccinations until the kind of July, August, September timeframe. It's become one of the most vaccinated countries in the world. Almost all valid adults or qualified adults are fully vaccinated. About half of the population has now received a third booster shot. There's even early discussions of potential fourth shots being distributed at some time later this year. We don't exactly know that timeline. And yeah, as you said, they're also discussing children from 3 to 5 potentially getting vaccinated. But the nearest step will be children from ages 5 to 11, which they haven't been vaccinated at all yet, but that is expected to start in the coming months. They've been working on 12 to 18-year-olds over the last 2 or 3 months, and that age bracket is expected to be fully vaccinated by the end of April, I believe.
Michael, staying with vaccinations, what has been the public response to plans by the government to inoculate children as young as 3 years old?
We haven't seen a whole lot of reporting on that yet. And granted, these plans are fairly new. That's still in the early stages of discussion. I think there'll be a lot of concern probably from parents. As with anywhere, kids are extremely important. Parents take their health very seriously. But the reaction to 12 to 18-year-olds has been strong. There's been really no major issues with that. Obviously, younger kids are a bigger question mark, but thus far, I would kind of expect it to continue with largely people kind of going along with the vaccination campaign, which we've seen is working. I mean, the case numbers have been incredibly high recently, but the death rate has been very low, dropping even. Yesterday, they reported 69 COVID deaths nationwide. Of course, that's terrible, but that's well down from hundreds a day a few months ago. And again, even with these huge Omicron-related case spike, we haven't seen any related spike in mortality or severity.
Right. Meanwhile, Michael, with regard to border restrictions, authorities there have reportedly announced the resumption of visa-free travel for citizens from 13 countries, including Korea. Do explain this ease in restriction for us.
Yeah, so this comes after 2 years of the international tourism industry being completely shut down. There was a limited vaccine passport program that started in November that saw a few people come in on charter flights and kind of restricted to just a few resorts. I think about 10,000 people visited under that since November, which is quite a small number. So this has been talked about for a long time. Other countries in Southeast Asia have reopened in recent months to varying degrees. And this is a tourism industry that was growing by leaps and bounds. Prior to COVID, a record almost 19 million visitors came in 2019. South Korea is a huge market for Vietnam, for example. So this was under a lot of pressure from the tourism industry, and also kind of seeing that widespread vaccination and a lack of there not being a spike in deaths or severe cases kind of allowed this to happen.
Right. Michael, do tell us a bit more about the prerequisites for this visa exemption then.
Yeah, so it's quite a dramatic relaxation of rules. I think a lot of people are kind of caught by surprise by just how relaxed it is. So there's no quarantine. You don't even have to show a proof of vaccination to arrive. You just need a PCR test within 72 hours, a negative PCR test within 72 hours of departure, or a rapid test within 24 hours of departure from your home country. And as long as that's negative, you can arrive and travel freely. If you're on that visa waiver program, that is only for up to 15 days. They haven't brought back any longer tourist visas yet. There are also still some questions regarding travel insurance or health insurance and what happens if a tourist were to test positive while they're in Vietnam. Some of that is a little unclear. But on paper, at least, the regulations for entering are among the most generous in Southeast Asia now.
Right. And before you go, Michael, one final question. What can you share with us about the COVID-19 related restrictions over there in Vietnam at the moment?
There largely aren't any. I mean, here in Ho Chi Minh City, at the very least, life is honestly back to almost pre-pandemic levels, I would say. I mean, people are still almost entirely wearing masks, but traffic is busier than it's been in, I think, at least a year, at least from what I've noticed. Schools are back. A lot of students have been getting COVID, but again, as far as we know, relatively mild. So there's been some disruption with schools. But restaurants, cinemas, karaoke are all fully open. Domestic travel is quite easy. I mean, some northern provinces have been a bit more of an issue thanks to their high Omicron caseloads, but there really aren't any significant restrictions in place, and certainly nothing on the national level.
Right. Well, that is good to know. All right, Michael, thank you for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you.